Hi, welcome to the galley. In the galley today, we're talking about the most important spice that you can have, and that is your salt. You can take away all my other spices, and if I could only have one, it's going to be my kosher salt. And the reason for this is because your kosher salt enhances and brings out the natural flavor of your food. It doesn't just make it salty. So like when Chef George was way back in the day teaching me flavor profiles, we took chicken stock and he would add a little kosher salt. I would taste, he would add, I would taste, he would add, I would taste. And then what happens is it just keeps getting to taste more like chicken and more like chicken and more like chicken until you get to that flavor profile that you're looking for. And you can do this at home. You know, maybe make some mashed potatoes or chicken stock and no seasoning, just start adding a little kosher salt. And then at a time, and you're going to find that, hey, it just keeps tasting more like potato. So for that reason alone, the kosher salt is my very, very, very best friend. Now, kosher salt does not necessarily mean it's kosher. There are kosher salts. Kosher salt just got its name because it was used in the process of making koshered meats. So it's kind of like corned beef got its name because the salt used to make corned beef looked like corn. So it got the name corned beef. But not all kosher salts are created equal. You have to be careful because you want one that has no anti-caking agents, no additives, no preservatives. You just want the salt. Now, this brand, the Diamond brand, just pure salt, they have been making this in the same style, in the same place since the 1800s. It's just pure kosher salt. Now, the beauty of kosher salt is it is the lowest on the sodium level. 1 teaspoon of kosher salt has 1,100 milligrams of sodium versus 1 teaspoon of the poison they call iodized table salt has 2,300 milligrams of sodium. So do yourself a favor, pick a really nice kosher salt and have that as your everyday cooking salt. And you can bake with it. You don't have to have that separate salt to bake with. And if you feel like you need to, the Diamond brand makes a baking salt as well that's just finely ground for you. So this is my best friend. Now, these boxes, especially here on the boat, will turn into a hard brick. So whenever I get a new one, I either have to vacuum seal the box or break it out into containers that are airtight. Otherwise, this just turns into a hard brick because it's just so humid on the boat. So I think that's probably different depending on where you live. Now, of course, sea salts have, developed this cult following in recent years, and I think some is positive and I think some is not, because again, like your kosher salt, all sea salts are not created equal. This is just, this is like a special little jewel that I have tucked away, because sometimes you want that little bit of flaked sea salt on like a caramel or a chocolate, something beautiful dessert that you're making. So this is not one that you have to have. It's just, a special a treat that I have. But for my everyday sea salt, and if you've been with me for 2 seconds, it's the Redmond's Real Sea Salt. Now, sea salt. You want a sea salt that is not from the ocean. I know that sounds weird, but you want a sea salt that is not from the ocean, because the sea salts that come from the ocean have been introduced to pollutions. And the Redmond's Real comes from underground and has never been introduced to pollutions. And you want a sea salt that has traceability. So if you just go into TJ Maxx and buying your, Himalayan pink sea salt, you have no idea where that came from. And the Himalayan sea salts coming out of China, any of the sea salts coming out of China, have dangerous levels of heavy metals in them because they drill through the salt into the core, the ore of the mountain, wherever they're drilling them from. And therefore, they have high levels of metals in them. So have whatever sea salt you use, have traceability. Know where that sea salt is coming from. Now, for me, this is, for my everyday cooking, but, I can use this for my ferments. I can use this for my pickling. So that's another great thing about the koshers. I can use it for everything. But I choose to, for my ferments, this is what I use, because then not only those ferments already really good for me, but now I'm adding 60 plus trace minerals to my ferments. And then I use this every day. I make sole water that I drink every day. I use this in my hydration drinks because our body needs sodium. Sodium is what helps your cells absorb water. So you can't really stay hydrated without sodium. So our body needs sodium. And so this is a great way to get that into your body. Now, of the sea salts in the sodium level, the sea salt from Kona, the Kona sea salt is the lowest. The Celtic sea salt is the second lowest for sodium levels, and then the Redmond's Real is the third. But while we're talking about sodium and good sodiums and bad sodiums, that poisonous box of iodized table salt is just that. It is poison. If you have one, just throw it away. These salts are made at detrimentally high heat levels, and it just strips them of everything. That kind of salt is going to raise your blood pressure. It's going to help cause heart disease. It's going to make you bloat. That salt deadens your taste buds. And if you ever see people, they just sit down and pick up the salt shaker and start shaking, that's because they just want to taste something. So and then they put iodine in it. Ooh. So back in the 20s, there was people that had goiters because they didn't have enough iodine in their diet. And these are mostly places that are high levels, way up in the mountains. So Switzerland had an issue, and the Appalachian Mountains was known as the goiter belt. Now, I grew up in West Virginia, and as a kid, I remember seeing people with the big goiter, and it's because it affects your thyroid, and you get this big, like, softball thing on your neck, and it's not pleasant. And that's because iodine falls through the earth. So the things that have the highest levels of iodine are kelp and seaweed. But we're not isolated like we were back in the 20s. Back then they said, well, everybody uses salt, so we'll put it in salt, and that way everybody will get the iodine. Well, we're not isolated anymore. So our diets are no longer iodine deficient. And if you think you're iodine deficient, there's a lot of different ways to get that iodine, even if you do the drops, than to try to get it from that poisonous salt. So I guess, if I'm out at a restaurant, I will not use the salt shakers. I don't want anything to do with that salt. So the Redmond's Real, they do this in a kosher style flaky. They do it in fine, so you can put this in your salt shaker if you want to have a salt shaker on your table for people to sprinkle their salt with. You can do that with this. So throw away those bottles of poison. So I hope this helped, and I really hope that you stop using that iodized table salt because you don't need it. Invest in a good kosher salt and sea salt that has traceability. Thanks, y'all. There's more Stocktober to come. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think of my salts. Oh, go to the website. On the website, and we'll put the link. There's more information about the salts, and there's links to my salts here. Thanks, y'all. I'll see you later. Bye.